Alright, so we're back at it for another diorama. This is yet another commission job, and this was commissioned by Darais Prince, aka The Amazing, as he's known by on Instagram. This is the second diorama he's commissioned for me. The first one being kind of the first alleyway I ever created. So I just never, at that time I wasn't really taking footage and I wasn't really doing YouTube too much, so I didn't even think about recording it. But what it was you guys have probably seen it. It's just kind of a brick wall in the back, brick wall on the side, on both sides, cement on the bottom, brick up top, and then it had interchangeable back walls. I don't think Darais has used the second back wall much, but one wall was all brick. The other one was as if something had smashed through this way. So I had kind of bricks laying on the floor, and I had kind of bricks just kind of laying, a hole, and then bricks kind of laying off of it, as if it would look when something breaks through. That was definitely a much bigger diorama. That was the 2-footer, which is kind of the standard that the standard size that I use for dioramas. And I think one of my first dioramas was that huge warehouse. That was definitely too big, and then I started doing the 24 inches across, 15 inches deep, kind of became the standard. So a lot of my my personal dioramas are that size. And when people started hitting me up, I would ask them, what's your budget look like? What are you trying to do? They would say, well, I want something similar to what you did, that size. And so obviously those dioramas are up over $100. They're a lot bigger, not a lot bigger, but they're bigger. There's more magnets, there's more materials, definitely more time consuming. So those bigger ones are always going to go a little more expensive. I tend to let people know that if you want a commission from me and it makes sense for both of us, I'm willing to work with your budget. If your budget looks like it's on the lower end, then I'll definitely do something. Anything I do, I'm going to give 110%, but I'll do something a little smaller that's less time consuming, yet the details are still going to be in place. And if you want something bigger, then it's going to cost a little more, and that just makes sense. And I don't want to continue rocking these big ass dioramas and putting a lot of time, effort, energy, and not getting my bang for my buck, if you will, or you're getting your bang for your buck. So but yeah, man, either way, it is 13 inches across, 13 inches that way, 11.5 inches that way. The walls are 11 inches tall. It's gonna have some beams. It's gonna be cool, man. I'm really looking forward to this one, just because it lets me focus on a lot of, he wants it to be, this is gonna be I'm sorry, I should have said that from the beginning. This is gonna be an abandoned construction site, or an abandoned or a construction site that just never happened. They started construction and it just didn't go through. So these will be movable. These won't be permanent at all. These two walls are magnetized. This is going to be a permanent piece on here. I'm going to try some new techniques for putting debris and stuff on the floor. And yeah, man, so I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be, brick here, brick there, and then I think I'm going to do brick up until here. And all this will be cement, crumbled up and beat up and falling apart in chunks on the floor and the whole nine. So, again, I'm looking forward to working on this. It's gonna be right up my alley, and I'm trying some new things as well. And as I've said, I know that you guys been really good again at just always giving me props and showing me love. And I don't really know what I'm doing, bro. I really don't know. This is new to me. I'm trying new things, and so this is the case here. I'm gonna try a couple new things with this one and see how it comes out. But definitely looking forward to beating this bad boy up. And again, I'll keep progressing as I go along. Gonna try my best to keep all my videos to about 20 minutes, as that seems about right to me. As I probably wouldn't watch a video necessarily that would go over 20 minutes. And I had actually kind of asked And Todd got back to me and said that 20 minutes seems to be the standard, the average, which is, you know, fine with me. So I'm gonna aim at making this bad boy here 20 minutes long. So I think the next shot you're gonna see is once it's ready to be painted, I'll show that a little bit, and then once it's that first base color, that black, you'll see that, and then we'll go from there. But I'm just gonna make sure to keep it to about 20 minutes long. All right, y'all, I'll be back. So as I'm trekking along with this one, was able to finish putting most of what I want to lay down on the floor. That back piece is glued on there permanently, as is that little piece, and it serves as a guide to the wall because this diorama isn't magnetized in this corner. It's just magnetized in that corner and somewhere in there. And so the reason I did that is because, again, man, just always trying to think of a way to not, you know, use a million magnets. So I was able to just do 8 on the core part of the diorama. So we have, you know, 1 there, or 2 there, 2 there, 2 in that corner, 2 in that corner. So we have a total of 8. Then I have some real mini ones that I used for this here to magnetize that. And everything's glued down except for this piece of wood that I'm going to glue down, and then this little pile that I'm going to glue down permanently as well. Also, real quick, I also wanted to add, a few people have been asking about these beams. How did I make them? Well, fortunately, I didn't have to. This is what is on one side of the foam board that I buy. So I buy an 8-foot by 2-foot, 2-inch insulation foam board. So it's the stuff that has the Pink Panther on it. So what these are intended to do, the reason they make foam board is to insulate houses. So they put them behind, you know, the sheetrock and the studs and whatever. So this part here interlocks with this part here, like so. And what you do is, as you're installing, because you're drilling through this, you're drilling it into the wall, you're interlocking it. And that, my friends, is all that is. So this was just basically on the other side of this foam board, and I just sliced it about 1 inch. So this is the beams. I am gonna add some nuts or excuse me, bolts to it. So this is not the complete beam, but all right, stay tuned. So we're back, and I have given it the first coat, which is that black that I pretty much use. Part of the reason for the black is so that, for example, these cracks and these cracks, when you give it the next paint, the next set of paints, and in this case it's going to be a dry brush, a darker gray dry brush, you're going to be able to see the cracks underneath, or you're going to be able to see the black in the cracks. So that's what makes it kind of pop out. So that's why I normally go with the black. I know a lot of people do a gray and different type of colors. I just normally go, you know, with the black all the way across. What I did for this one is that you normally don't paint the back of dioramas or the sides, just because when you're taking the picture, you know, you're coming at this angle. But in doing some research yesterday and trying to find out how big the Detolf shelves are, the ones you get from IKEA that a lot of people in the community use, wanted to know how big was just one cube, which is one little section of it. And this diorama would fit in there perfectly. I believe it is 15 inches across for the Detolf, and this is 13. So it gives a bit, 1 inch on each side. And I think the height for the Detolf, I think it's 14 or something like that, but this is 11. And then I think it's, I want to say 13.5 inches deep for the Detolf. This is 11.5 inches deep. So it actually fit perfectly. So if this one's being done for Darius, so if Darius wants to put in a Detolf, I don't even know if he owns any, he can. And so, you know, the back obviously is still pink, but the back wouldn't show. What you'd see is, you know, this side and kind of that side. The steel beam, did some more research. Apparently, for some reason, I thought it had bolts throughout the beam, but where the bolts are is normally or usually where it's bolted into the wall or bolted into each other. So I may still figure something out for some small bolts, or not. I mean, you can't see them. This part, I magnetized this part. So I just magnetized this just so I can kind of do that. And then the good thing about I didn't magnetize it to the bottom, so you can put it anywhere you want across, across the beam. So if you want to put it more towards the back for that, that particular photo shoot, you can do that. If you wanted to put it more towards the front, you can do that as well. What I did is I almost kind of created these markers of where it would normally sit. Alright, so this step is done. The next step now is the painting process. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go with the brick red, give it a couple of coats of the brick red, then start doing the floor, and then definitely one of those jobs where the wood has to be painted a separate color of the bricks and so forth. So again, just like I said in the last segment, I really think it's going to look really dope once you start kind of seeing the color contrast from each other. All right, I'll be back, and by the time I come back, it should be mostly painted, or I might just do come back with just a brick or some of the floor. I don't know. We'll see. Peace. All right, man. So this is behind the scenes. This is the work area. This is actually, take a step back, this is my desk at my part-time job. So on Sundays they do a church service here. Group rents the space out every Sunday, so I'll work some of the Sundays, and because I have an office up here, I'm able to come upstairs and be at the office. So I always have to transform it into the workstation for the day. So this is the background. Mixed a couple of different paints for the grays. I never like the grays that come standard at the art store. I always like to mix them and get them a little darker or a little lighter. And I'm pretty much done with the painting, except for the beams need to be painted still, and I need to airbrush. But I'm definitely happy with how it's looking so far. Again, the vision always, I always try to have kind of that visual in my mind of how it's going to look before it gets executed. And again, I think it's always a good look when you have certain pieces that are, so we have the gray floor, and I went with a little bit darker gray than the walls, so that the red and the wood, the brown on the wood, the red on the brick will will look good in terms of the contrast of colors. So everything here is glued down and permanent. The new technique that I had actually mentioned in the beginning of the video was I was going to start kind of carving out, like for example, that piece of wood. I carved, it's actually a thicker piece than what you see. I carved out a hole in the floor and I kind of sunk it in, glued it in. And I think the goal was to do that across the board for all of them. But the more I thought about it, the more just, I don't know, it would have been too much work for what I'm trying to do. And the goal was to not have any of this come off quickly. So instead of doing that, I just reinforced some of it and, did like a strip of, where you couldn't see, I did a strip of hot glue. And I'm pretty comfortable with that. So, yeah, man, this one's almost in the book. So I just got to do the beams, airbrush it, and it's ready to be shipped out. I definitely liked working on this size of a diorama, man. I didn't know, I'm so used to working on the 2-footers. that to cut it, you know, almost in half at 13 inches, it looked terribly tiny to me. But I think that's just because I'm so used to working with the bigger size. It's still a good size for toy photography. Darais, this is going to Darais, and a lot of Darais' shots are real tight shots. So he'll take shots like that where the figure is as it should be. The figure is the primary attraction. So I think he'll be happy with this, and I think it came out really good, man. It came out really good. I'm not gonna paint the back in gray. I'm just gonna leave it in black, and I'm not gonna paint the back of this one. But I did paint the sides, and yeah, and I'm gonna work on another one too, just like, well, not like this, but similar to this. For somebody where it's gonna be an alleyway, it's not gonna be a construction site, but it's just gonna be the corner, but it's gonna be similar to this in terms of size. Yeah, it looks like I'm done. Not sure if I'll show the last, once it's airbrushed. I might just airbrush it and pack it and ship it. But I'll definitely make sure I take pictures. Alright, y'all. Peace. Alright, so here we are. And this diorama is complete. So I made a fence because I think for the theme of the diorama, it's definitely a good idea to have a messed up fence that can be placed anywhere actually. So if you want to lay it on at your feet, you can do that. But again, the theme here was kind of an abandoned, kind of torn down construction site. So let's put the fence here for now. The beams are, again, they're movable, can be put towards the back, which gives you more space on the dio itself. I built in some guides on where I envisioned it. Painted this a metallic gold color over the black wash, or over the black base, and I like the color, the effect that it had on it. Looking for that iron type look. And my daughter, who actually just walked in the room, tells me I need to black wash these two, or not black wash, but dry brush these two pieces of wood, because she said they look fake. So good advice, because they could be darker, and I am going to darken them up. Yeah, so airbrush is complete. The last step here is the acrylic sealer, which I will do in a little bit. And once that sealer's on, it's good to go. Gonna see if I can ship this out tomorrow. Had a good time with it, man. As I do with all these dioramas, I'm having a great time. Kind of coming up with what it's gonna look like, and the different ideas to for it to pop, for it to look unique. The other day, during the conversation I was having with AJ and Michael a couple Sundays ago, he mentioned something that is true to the graffiti world as well, which is you start to kind of see a dio and say, Al Figures did that dio, or AJ did that, or Bob did that diorama. And so it's interesting, because that's how graffiti is. Like, you can tell, once you start following other writers and liking the work that they're doing, you can tell whenever they do something, even if it's not their name, you can tell. And it's just because they kind of have that unique style. So that was a good point by AJ. So I guess I do have a pretty unique style, and I can just see my cracks are pretty consistent. I've never really changed the cracks. They're not the greatest cracks in the world, but you know, they work. And again, you know, I keep living by the mentality that I'm definitely gonna give the dial my all. Understanding that a lot of times when you take the picture, you may not necessarily see, especially if you're doing the characters more towards the front. And depending on how you take the shot, the background just drops into, you know, a background, which is what it's supposed to do. So understanding that, but also working on it as if you're gonna take shots of his boots, you know, because I just want it to look as realistic as possible. Tried a different crack technique and kind of messed it up. I painted too dark in here, but brought it back to life a little bit with the other colors. But yeah, so you know, it's just one of them things where you just kind of keep experimenting, keep kind of working on new techniques, or perfecting your technique, or getting close to perfecting it. At the very least, giving it that all-out effort. So yeah, so client Darius in this case wanted kind of a construction site that was destroyed and messed up walls and so forth. I was gonna do more in terms of maybe a hole there, just kind of kill it a little more, but I just decided that with the size of it, because it's kind of smaller than my average size dioramas, I didn't want to have a situation where he'd have to now come up with solutions to fill in the background, so when he's taking a shot and you can see whatever's behind, you know, in this case I have some paper, and I'm pretty sure he'll do something similar. I just didn't know how it would look, so I just left it more complete, but still, you know, falling apart. Alright, so this one is done, and I am on to the next one, which is going to be similar to this, but I'm going to twist it up a little bit. All right, peace.